ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Disclosures of the Third Kind. You're listening to me, Christian Stefanizzi. Crypto's also with us today. What are we talking about today? A couple of things, actually. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the Kecksburg incident, its prominence, and its show in the in Disclosure Day, actually, which was very interesting to see it at the very end. I'll put Crypto back there. Of Disclosure Day. See a bit better there. So yeah, why was it in Disclosure Day? And more importantly, why were they showing a body? Well, let's get into that. First of all, if anybody hasn't seen me before, I'm Disclosure of the Third Kind. Do like and subscribe for more content like this. I do short cases that I can find through NICAP, APRO, etc, etc. I've also written 2 books, Beyond Roswell, Cold War Cover-Ups, Conspiracy Theories, and The Undisclosed Visitors. They're both available on Amazon. If you are interested in those, I do most of the cases that I have found are in those books. So if you are interested, do take a look at those, folks. Yes, so let's get into the Kecksburg incident. So, what's going on with Kecksburg? Well, Kecksburg, the incident, it involves an acorn-shaped object, or a UFO. Sometimes mistaken for the Soviet, it's like a Soviet, how to explain it? Soviet satellite, which crashed actually 13 hours previous to the Kecksburg Acorn. I call it an acorn because I've got no other way of describing it. Most people, they put it down to a meteor. That's what Project Blue Book put it down to when they investigated the case in late December of 1965. J. Allen Hynek put it down to basically meteorite, and that was the end of it. But the witnesses that came forward in 1995, 30 years after the event, all explained the same thing. You've got one of the most prominent figures is James Romansky, who was with the fire department, who went out to the incident thinking it was a crashed aircraft, but it wasn't. It was nothing, nothing of the sort. He said, "I was never seen anything like it." He said 15 minutes later the military turned up, but I'll explain what he said he saw. Among all the other witnesses, James Romansky said basically what he saw was an object that had dug its way into the ground in the middle of this woods at this angle, and poking at the back. There was no propulsion system. That's one. That was very strange to him. He couldn't understand why there was no propulsion system on the craft. He noticed that along the ring, there was like a ring at the bottom of this object, and there was hieroglyphics along this ring. Unlike anything it's seen before, actually could be similar to what was seen at Roswell. The same sort of hieroglyphics. So I've not dug too far into that, but we know that Jesse Marcel and others, such as Colonel William Blanchard, who said he'd never seen anything like the object that crashed at Roswell. And we've got General Arthur Exxon as well, saying the same thing. They all said about these hieroglyphics on these on the shards of metal or pieces of on the I-beam debris. Now you've got that, and then you fast forward to 1965. You've got that crashed acorn with the same hieroglyphics on this ring, which is very strange to me. So it couldn't have been a Soviet satellite. I'm assuming that they would have known straight away that that's Russian. They clearly couldn't. All these witnesses who came forward clearly couldn't identify this as Russian. And one of the witnesses actually said that, well, I knew what Russian sort of writing had looked like, and that was nothing like Russian. That was some sort of strange hieroglyphics similar to what was seen at the Egyptian temples, which is very, very interesting. So there is that. James Romansky said that there was a smell of sulfur in the air that was surrounding the craft, which is really interesting. This fact that there's a smell of sulfur actually coincides with abduction accounts, such as that of Whitley Strieber in 1985. He explained that there was a strong smell of sulfur before he was basically abducted by the Greys, which would mean either the craft is a craft of the Greys from Zeta Reticuli, which would make sense because the smell of this smell of sulfur, and I think they said ammonia as well potentially surrounding this craft. It means that and the same symbols, that means it's probably from the same place. the greys, Zeta Reticuli. They came to the conclusion that the greys crashed at Roswell, or I think they say the Cajuns as well, Cajun greys, or just the greys. I've heard that Cajuns before, but I've not found any documentation to that effect, so I can't say for certain that anything to do with the Cajuns. But the greys, I know for sure, are prominent figures in Betty and Barney Hill, Roswell, most abduction accounts actually. So you've got that. But like I said, Whitley Strieber explained that this sulfur smell was at the abduction, was in the abduction scene, and it was a pungent smell, and it was actually surrounding the area where the craft had come down as well. So, which is exactly the same as the Kecksburg object. What's also very interesting is Romansky said that there were sort of NASA scientists or NASA employees in moon suits, which is almost like, not an astronaut suit, but a mask, and basically protecting them from whatever radiation or hazardous material was at the scene. They were going around with Geiger counters to detect what was at the area, if there was any radiation. I assume that he explains that there was high levels of radiation at the scene. When he asked one of the military officials later on what it was, what the object was, because when the military arrived 15 minutes later, they hired everybody else who was there. James Romansky and the fire department were pushed out straight away. And he said, well, what was that at the scene? And they said, basically, it was a meteorite, and left it there. And he looked to one of his colleagues and he said, what do you think it was? He said, well, I can tell you now, it was not a meteorite. That was definitely no meteorite. They knew it was a constructed object by some sort of... It was a man-made object, sorry, that it was no meteorite, that was it was intelligently made, basically, is what they were trying to say. The hieroglyphics, the steel that seemed to surround the object, there was no signs of any welding marks. However, there was no rivets or anything. But then there's this talk of a body. There's only one witness who came forward saying, or two witnesses who came forward saying there was a body, and that was two. I can't remember the names of the witnesses, but they came forward saying they were delivering bricks to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and this Kecksburg Acorn craft had a tarpaulin over it. You could see it was up on stilts, and as they were delivering the bricks, they noticed the objects. One of the gentlemen had a quick peek and was told to hurry out of there quickly once he was caught, but he'd seen everything at that point. He could just about make out the hieroglyphics at the bottom. But he said that they were delivering these bricks, and he assumed that what they were going to do, because the bricks were exactly the same as the rest of the bricks in this warehouse, basically. It was a World War II era warehouse. And he said what they were going to do, it looked like, was entomb it, so that nobody ever knew it was there. It looked like it was part of the structure, which is very interesting. But he said that this thing was strange. The hieroglyphics point, what he could see, he'd never seen anything like it, which is, yeah, very interesting. So that's Kecksburg, realistically. You've got, and the fact that it's in Disclosure Day is really interesting. You've got a body there, and the body was seen on a table, according to one of the gentleman who was delivering the bricks. He said he could see this strange. He saw the most prominent part was the hand and the side of the head. He could see, and it was he said it was a strange being. It was grey. Again, I'm not too sure because there's not enough witness testimony on this, but he did say he could see the long fingers and the side of the grey alien head. So, which is very interesting. If that's true, then it would have been manned by a grey from Zeta Reticuli or a closer star system, which is interesting. But it would make sense because you've got the hieroglyphics, you've got the smell of sulfur. These would potentially, if this is an occurrence, this is concurring that this seems to be something that's happened at Roswell, Betty and Barney Hill, Whitley Strieber, then it's the same species potentially. So yes, that is Kecksburg, really, folks. And the fact that it was in Disclosure Day, like I just said before, was really interesting. Potentially, that's some of the evidence they're going to bring forward. Kecksburg, Roswell was in there. I believe the 1953 Kingman crash was there as well, with the recovery of J-Rod. J-Rod was, we won't get into J-Rod, that'll be another episode, but J-Rod helped supposedly reverse engineer alien technology at Area 51, which is interesting. So yeah, that's really it, folks, about Kecksburg. That's the information I have to hand at the moment. If I get any more, I will come forward with it and bring it in another video, folks. So yeah, thanks for watching another episode of Disclosures of the Third Kind, folks. It's been a short episode about Kecksburg. And yeah, like and subscribe for more content like this. Keep watching those skies, folks, because we are definitely not alone.